Hello Internet, my name is Professor Cunningham and I want to help you learn math. Now why would I want to do that? Why would I use YouTube to do it? Why do you even want to learn math in the first place? Why is a raven like a writing desk? These are all very important questions, but more important than that is the act of asking them. Math isn't the kind of skill that you can just pick up by watching somebody and not asking any questions. You have to ask questions. You have to ask all of the questions. You have to be that student who puts your hands up every single time the teacher takes a breath. Now, I know that's intimidating, and I know it's very difficult. I know sometimes you might think that the rest of the class will hate you if you ask too many questions. Well, I'm here to tell you that 9 times out of 10, when you ask a question, someone else in the class also had the same question but was too afraid to ask. So question everything. Do not take anything I say at face value. Do not take anything your teachers say at face value. Always, always try to understand why. If you're one of those students that has extreme social anxiety and the mere thought of putting your hand up sends you into a panic, then that's okay too. You can always write down your questions and ask after class, or even go online and look up the answers there. I'll provide a couple of good resources in the description. So a little bit about me. I have been teaching for half my life. I started when I was 17 years old, and I have been doing very little else ever since. I earned my teaching credential at Sonoma State University in California, and I have worked throughout many, many different aspects of education. So a little bit about my teaching philosophy. First off, I believe that you have to fail in order to succeed. That's just the way it works. For some reason, we as a culture, both students and teachers, seem to have this idea that you have to be good at math instantly. It has to be something that you learn the first time without asking any questions, and if you don't learn it, then you fail, and that's it, you're done, your grade is ruined, and that's all. I don't believe that. I don't have that same philosophy. I believe that you have to start out being really bad at something in order to get good at it. That's the way it works. After all, you were bad at breathing at one point in your existence. You weren't very good at walking when you first tried. You couldn't say any words when you first tried. It takes time to learn these things, and it takes some people longer than others. It takes some people more effort than others, and I know that it always seems like there are those students who understand everything instantly, perfectly, 100% of the time. But for the rest of us, it's going to take some time, it's going to take some effort, and it's going to take some failure to get to the point where you know what you're doing. This is especially true if you have one of several learning disabilities that might affect your ability to work with numbers or see the patterns between them. And that's okay. The nice thing about using YouTube is at any time you can stop, you can pause, you can think, you can go back a little bit. You can play this video faster or slower depending on your needs. It might make my voice sound a little bit funny, but let's be honest, my voice sounds a little bit funny anyway, so it's okay. The bottom line is I honestly believe that if you stick with me and you try your best and you keep trying your best, even in the face of failure, you can learn anything. You can absolutely get this down. Now, in my classroom, which is where you are right now, it is important to understand why things work and not just how. A lot of times when people learn math, they think they're learning a bunch of formulas and a bunch of theorems that they just have to memorize long enough to put down on an exam and then move on with their lives. That's not how I work. In my class, it is important to ask questions, it's important to reflect, it's important to be able to explain the reasons behind your thinking. It's not good enough to just solve a problem. You should be able to tell someone else how you solved the problem and why you know that your answer is the correct one. To this end, we're going to look a lot at math as a language, as well as math as a set of patterns and a set of ideas that connect to one another. They are not just some random series of ideas that are completely disconnected. It is a lattice work, a foundation of ideas that build up into more and more and more concepts. And as we continue, I'm going to be linking new ideas to existing ideas that you already know. In other words, I'm hoping for you to see math as one giant pattern instead of a bunch of separate ideas. Now, one of the big questions that's always asked by every student to every math teacher is, when are we going to have to use this in real life? And this is a difficult question to answer because there isn't always an easy answer. After all, a lot of math is directly applicable to your real life. The problem is, a lot of the concepts as seen individually are not. There are a lot of concepts that I'll be teaching you that by themselves have no direct practical application in real life. However, these ideas often lead to other concepts, other topics, other ideas that are practical, and those topics would not make any sense without having that foundation in the first place. Again, math is not a series of unconnected ideas. layers. It all builds on itself. It all builds up towards something together. That said, I will be pointing out direct applications where they happen. Now, my teaching philosophy comes directly out of a set of standards that are used in the United States called Common Core. Wait, don't go away. Don't turn off the video yet. I know that when people hear those two words, there is usually a very strong and very negative reaction. This is because there's a lot of misinformation out there about Common Core. You see a lot of memes on Facebook all the time that talk about ridiculous or insulting problems that you see in Common Core. However, Common Core, at its most basic, is just exactly what I've already been talking about this entire video. Each grade focuses on different areas, of course, but there are a few practices that tie them all together. It focuses on making sense of problems instead of just doing them mindlessly. That way, if a problem that's slightly different comes around, you don't get stuck. There's a lot of importance placed on being able to defend and explain your reasoning, as well as to critique the reasoning of others. Common Core expects you to learn to model real-world situations in math, which is, after all, what every student wants to do, right? You have to use what you learn precisely and strategically in order to solve problems with the minimum amount of effort. And, as I said earlier, you have to look for patterns in mathematical reasoning so that you can adapt to new situations when they come up. In short, Common Core is all about looking at the bigger picture instead of focusing on what'll just get you past the next exam. If you just get past the next exam, then the one after that will be more difficult because you will have forgotten what you've already learned. I would absolutely love to discuss the misconceptions surrounding Common Core further, but this video's already gotten a little bit longer than I intended it to be, so I'll have to save it for another time. So that's a little bit about me and my philosophy. In the next video, I'll tell you a little bit more about this channel, exactly how I'm going to go about teaching, how it relates to Common Core, and how you can use it to the greatest benefit. Until then, I invite you to go into the comments and tell me about your best and worst experiences in math. How does a teacher help you? How do they not help you? One last thing. As you can see, my production value on this channel is pretty low. I'm using my phone as a camera, and I'm using fairly low-quality editing software. If what I'm doing here is interesting to you and you want to support me, then you can do so by hitting that subscribe button. If you're willing and able to help out with the financial burden of upgraded equipment in addition to keeping me fed and caffeinated, I'll put links to my Patreon and Ko-fi sites down in the description. Patreon is for a monthly donation, Ko-fi is for one time. That said, any kind of support is appreciated, even if you only click the thumbs up button underneath the video. Thank you very much for watching and have a mathemagical day. No, that's a terrible catchphrase. Who even thought about that? Was that me?